All right, good evening. My name is Bob Connors. It is now 6:01 p.m. I'd like to call the April 15th meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission to order. Mason, please read the remote open meeting law preamble and take a roll call of the members present.
As a preliminary matter, this is Mason Ferrick, Conservation Agent at the Newbury Conservation Commission, and I call the April 15th meeting to order and permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Rimmer?
Yes.
TJ Conti? Mick Brown? Diane O'Brien? Woody Knight?
Yes.
Frank Wettenkamp and Bob Connors.
Good.
Good evening, everyone. This open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the Governor's order suspends the requirement of open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Mick is joining. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom call as posted on the agenda of the Conservation Commission section of the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating remotely. Accordingly, please be aware of other folks and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon to speak and/or share information to the screen if able on the fly. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your mic, use earbuds, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Board and committee members should be called upon in a first name alphabetical order to ease the process. After board and committee members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first seek questions through the chat function. Where participants are using this function, please list your name, address, and then your question. The chair will then seek questions from the public who wish to speak. They'll be asked to identify their names and address, question, and once the chair has a list of all public commentators, they'll call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
Okay, thank you, Mason. Upcoming meeting dates, May 6th and May 20th. Meeting minutes under review are April 1st, 2025 draft minutes. Let's take a moment to review those, see if there's any comments, corrections, or concerns. Okay, hearing no questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for April 1st as written.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Roll call, all in favor. Mary?
I was not in attendance, so I am
Okay. Oh,
abstaining on that.
all right. Woody?
Yes.
Mick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And Bob Connors votes yes. Okay. Motion carries. Okay, next order of business is an RDA application for 1249th Street. Applicant is submitting an RDA to propose a deck expansion on the property's east and west facing decks. The property is on the primary frontal dune and has existing beach grass vegetation surrounding the decks. Mason, can you provide an overview on this one?
No update at this time. The applicant has requested a continuance to get their site plans updated. So nothing until May 6th as of right now.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to continue this matter to our May 6th meeting at the applicant's request.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Mary?
Yes.
Woody?
Yes.
Mick?
Aye.
Diane?
Yes.
And Bob? Yeah, like I say, guys, it doesn't really require a formal vote to continue it because it's open to, it's a public meeting, but it's not a public hearing. Okay, next matter, an RDA Five Basin Front Drive, applicant is submitting an RDA for renovations on their home on Plum Island. The applicant proposes to build a bathroom into the existing porch footprint and add an indoor shower. The project is located on a barrier beach. Mason, can you provide an overview on this one?
Yeah, so this was discussed at the last meeting. I believe we had a couple of questions on the roof line, and if there was any new pilings needed for the addition of this. So the applicant David is here. He can answer any questions, and while he does so, I can share my screen and
Okay.
let
David, welcome. If you could just give us your full name and address and then make your presentation what you'd like to do.
Sure. My name is David Brulette. I'm at 5 Basin Front Drive in Plum Island. And what I'm basically trying to do is provide a shower inside the house. Right now it's outside the house. So you can see on this elevation, the bathroom is where that small window is on the left-hand side. And we're basically moving the wall over 19 inches. So it will look like the proposed elevation on the right side. So moving the wall over 19 inches and just raising, instead of having a shed roof, it'll have a gable roof. So you can see the change in the roof line there. It's not requiring any pilings. All of the support will be from the beams underneath. The roof is not, the walls are not supporting anything. It's just a shed roof. And it's sort of the exterior of it was sort of an add-on to the exterior of the house.
Okay, why don't I hold you there, David, and open this up to questions? Mary, any questions for David on this one? This came before us at our last meeting. And I think the open questions that we had for David were pretty much what he was going to do, if any, did he require doing any type of footings or supports, and then clarifying the change in the roof pitch. So with that, any questions, Mary?
No, it seems fairly straightforward. I just would ask that Mason check on these as they come in to make sure there's no outstanding orders of conditions on these, but other than that.
Okay, great. No, I think that's a good point, Mary, on any outstanding issues.
We see a lot of these, add a deck, then cover the deck, then add a deck, then cover the deck. So
Yep.
it's good to track them.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mary. Woody, any questions on this one?
No, I don't have any questions right now, Bob. Thank you.
Okay. Nick, any questions?
No, no questions for me.
All right, Diane, any questions?
Nope.
Okay, and I have no questions. Mason, are there any raised hands from the public at this time? I would like to comment on them.
seeing none.
Okay. Do any members have a request for any additional information? Okay, hearing none. I will entertain a motion to issue a negative finding for 5 Basin Front Drive.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Do we want to add any comments on this one? David, usually we ask that you just set up a pre-meeting with the agent before you get going there, just to kind of go over what you're doing, and keeps you out of trouble and it keeps us informed.
Okay, how soon should I do that before I start work?
I think as long as it's a few days before you start work, you're gonna have, what is it, a 10-day appeal period that you have to wait once you get your RDA on this, the finding.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second on a negative determination. Roll call. All in favor? Mary?
I'm going to abstain just because I'm not familiar with this one.
Okay. Woody?
yes.
Nick?
Aye.
Diane?
Yes.
And Bob Connors votes yes. Thank you, David. Mason,
you.
we'll work on this and hopefully we get it out to you this week.
Great. Thanks very much, everybody.
Okay, next matter is 2 Farmview Lane. Applicant is seeking an RDA for installing a pool and a patio on the edge of the buffer zone area. Associated site grading is proposed to create more space for pool and patio all within the buffer zone. Mason, can you give us an overview on this?
Yep. So they currently have an open order of conditions that we issued them a partial COC. The only things that we are waiting on is the stabilization of the back slope and the removal and restabilization of the farm road. That's in kind of a lower area. It's at the toe of the slope. In addition, all of the work seems to be happening outside of the 100-foot buffer zone in terms of the pool installation and the extension of the patio. The only thing that's going into the 100-foot buffer zone looks like it's going to be the grading work and the extension of the yard. From there, I will probably pass that off to TJ if he wants to go into depth a little bit more on these plans. I can allow him screen sharing privileges.
Yeah, TJ, just give your name and your affiliation on this project.
TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. I will pull up the plan. So as Mason had mentioned, the pool and patio themselves are actually outside the buffer zone, kind of in this area here. These dash lines are the existing contour lines, which kind of the toe slope, as Mason had mentioned, is one of the outstanding items from the original order of conditions. And then these solid lines here are what we're proposing. So really just looking to expand this part of the yard and just tie in the slope with kind of a 3-to-1, a little bit more gentler slope than what's out there now. And just allow for that pool to be constructed. Can zoom in a little bit. Really, most of the work is outside the 100-foot buffer. We do have a little bit of grading in this portion here. And then just tying back into the existing grades here. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay, Mason, do you have any questions for TJ? We'll start with you.
No questions. I would just recommend that, as this work's being completed, especially if there's going to be machines on site, I would hope that the outstanding issues from the open order of conditions could be fulfilled at that time. But that's all I have.
Yeah, so TJ, actually, I think that brings up a good point. What is the status of the remaining work on the original order of condition?
So we were last here, I believe it was December or January. So obviously the lawn hasn't taken fully at this point, and the areas that we were talking about are actually going to be changed with this proposal. So that I guess is kind of a moot point. As you know, ideally, if this gets approved, we'd be changing those slopes. As far as the removal of the old farm road, I know that it was suggested by hand. So I guess we could talk with the applicant about incorporating that as part of this construction once they have people out there, just to see what they can remove by hand. Because I know when we talked with Mary initially, it looks like some of it will be able to come up, but ideally we don't want any machines getting down in there and causing more disturbance to try to take out a little bit of that farm road. But we can certainly incorporate that as part of this project.
Okay. All right, thank you, TJ. Mary, questions for TJ on this project?
Well, yeah, I think the sequencing here presents a little bit of a problem because you
Yeah, I agree.
need a certificate of compliance first for the work before we can approve other work, or you'll never get your certificate of compliance. So, because it was tied to specific activities that won't be possible to achieve if you do this work first. So I think it's, fairly minor amount of work, but it's going to mess up like I said, the permit in getting a certificate of compliance. So if it's possible to, delay this until you can get some grass to grow, we're not that far away, maybe in another 4 or 5 weeks. And come back to the next meeting in May 20th or something like that. I don't think you're going to see a lot of objection to doing this to this RDA. I just think that sequencing wise, it's going to be difficult. So, and also just it should show on the plan what the treatment is and whether or not this limit of work is substantially different than the original limit of work. How that differs.
Mary, question. I mean, when TJ first presented this, what came to mind first is it would almost seem that it would be more appropriate to come in as a minor amendment to the open order of conditions, which hasn't been closed out. Is that even a possibility?
You can't amend it at this point. It's been mostly closed, so, except for one item, so I don't know that you can't reopen the hearing. For a.
Well, on a minor
then-
amendment, I mean,
I don't see how you do that if
yeah,
you've already got a recorded, partial certificate of compliance that allowed the sale. Or for whatever reason, that's the way they
Yeah,
wanted to do it.
okay.
They pushed the partial. I don't see erosion controls on here, so I think you need those as well. But I see them as a detail, but I don't see where it's located on the plan. Maybe there's a line, I just can't see it.
Yeah, I can zoom into that. I guess the one question I had as far as closing out the existing order I guess, is it possible where, a lot of the areas that we're talking about that needed to be vegetated are here, which ultimately, assuming this gets approved, we're going to rip up and, ultimately, a lot of this area is actually outside the buffer. So I just didn't know, is it possible to submit a request for the full COC and add an attachment or a condition to this approval to remove the farm road, whereas, that was something that was initially existing and wasn't part of any of our proposed limit of work or scope of work. Just because I know they do want to get going on this, and realistically, like they could kind of undertake this work ahead of
Yep.
time, which includes kind of that TOA slope issue. But I know it is a strange one because now this applicant is separate from the original applicant for the outstanding order. So it's definitely a
is-
strange.
Yeah, this is why I hate doing partial orders, because we always end up in,
right.
I've had this happen a number of times where it just makes things in the future complicated when different people have different plans. So the work that's in the buffer zone that's associated with this is exempt. I mean, you can undertake all that. You just have to stop when you got to the buffer zone. There's a very small area that's in the buffer zone that is changed, where you're changing grades,
Yep, right through here.
that little corner there. If that little corner is vegetated, and sufficiently stabilized, then I don't know.
Yeah,
You get
Mary,
out of this.
actually, you've reminded me at previously what we've done is before we would consider an RDA, an outstanding order of conditions would have to be closed. I want to say it was 21 Annapolis Way or 26 Annapolis Way. We had a similar situation. And ultimately they come in, they closed it out, and then we were able to cleanly just look at the RDA and ultimately I think that one was approved.
Yeah, yep.
So I think that's been kind of actually, has been our policy in the past. And I think you've just reminded us why it's the policy. So let me go on to Woody. Any questions for TJ?
Yes, where the farm road is a different lot than where this is, correct?
It's technically on this lot. Some of it was kind of just like scattered in here. There was some remnants of some gravel. There might have even been a couple chunks of pavement in this area here. It wasn't a large amount. It was, if I remember correctly, it was, maybe 50 square feet, but we didn't fully investigate exactly where it was. The thought was, just have them get in there with hand tools and pull out what they could. But to this point, to my knowledge, has not happened.
All right, and this house is on the northern side of the development, correct? Not the
Correct.
southern side.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Then I don't have any other questions at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Mick, questions for TJ on this application?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Diane, how about any questions for TJ on this project?
None, thank you, Bob.
Okay, so TJ, what I'm going to suggest is our policy in the past has been that an open order of condition has to be closed out before we would entertain an RDA. I think you can take from this meeting the general consensus that it, not to speak for the board, it seems favorable to receive a negative finding, but you're going to have to close out the original order of conditions. You can continue this RDA if you want until you get that done.
Okay.
All right, if it's planting, I mean, with all this rain, my friend, I would think some pitches may solve all your problems, but
Yeah, and again, I think a lot of the area was here, which I guess sounds like, and I know the Conservation Commission doesn't have jurisdiction, but it sounds like they would be able to get going on this work outside of the buffer zone before the RDA. It just really this work, we would need to get the RDA in place before we could conduct that. Is that accurate?
I think Mary, that's what Mary had stated earlier, that if it's exempt, then you don't require approval.
Okay, yeah, and we can work with Mason to, I could talk with the applicant. We can stake out the buffer zone lines just so they stay out of there if they want to get going on this part. And in the interim, we'll locate the areas of the slope that still need to be stabilized and work on getting that farm road out. And then, sorry, just one more thing, Mary, just to circle back, here's the erosion control line.
Got it. Okay,
short
thank
road.
you. Yep. Of course, easy.
Yeah. Well, yes, but when it's at 100%, you can read it, Mary. Other than that, it looks like,
Yeah,
it's like
it's
little specks, little dots of.
yeah.
So, all right. So TJ, I think you get some guidance on this. Get the order closed out. It doesn't sound like it's going to take that much. You have work you can do that's outside our jurisdiction, and you want to just leave this open, and we'll continue this to our. You want to just have us put this on like the second meeting of May, see if you guys can close out the other stuff to give you a full, it's up to you.
I would say, when is the next?
May 6th is
May
the next.
6th. I would say, like, if we could shoot for that, because I know they did put some seed down.
Okay,
It was earlier this year, so I'll go out there and take a look and see what's grown in, and then if they can remove the farm road, that should be, no more than a day's worth of work to get that out. So I guess if we could go to the 6th for now,
okay,
and then we can circle back at that
okay.
point.
So you're asking for a continuance to May 6th.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I will, again, this doesn't really require a formal motion to continue this, but I'll entertain a motion to continue this matter to our May 6th, just for the record.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
all right, roll call, all in favor, Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
Yes,
Nick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
Bob Connors votes yes. Mary, thank you for reminding us that, because that was our policy on closing out, for the obvious.
we
that just keeps it
discussed
clean.
that, when we
Yeah.
issued the partial too, what the difficulties were.
Yeah, because you have a change of ownership and usually a change of plan that
Yep.
comes with it. Okay, the next matters, we have 3 outstanding enforcement orders.
Bob, we have 3 Farm View.
Right, where?
Refarm you? I don't see that on the agenda.
Oh, okay, yeah, you know what, it
These,
was combined, that's,
Both submissions came in at the same time, and I thought
Okay.
it was one submission, but I had since revised the agenda to reflect both.
okay, it did get advertised, Mary Mason had mentioned this earlier,
Got it,
so it
okay.
was advertised. Okay, Mason, why don't you give us a quick overview on that, and is TJ also on that one, or is it somebody else?
Yeah, TJ's also on this one.
Okay,
Similar scope in the fact that they're looking for a pool and patio. From my notes, I would like to see a little bit more detail on the fill and the grade changes that's happening, as well as the retaining wall. And I know that previously there was some drainage issues in the backyard. And when I went and did the site inspection today, the backyard was pretty wet. So I think just addressing those concerns as we move from existing lawn to impervious surfaces, whether that's the patio or you know, the pool and things like that, I think addressing those issues, those pre-existing issues, will be relevant.
Okay, are there any outstanding orders or conditions or on this one?
I do not believe so. I can double check.
TJ, why don't you start your presentation?
Absolutely. Good evening, TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. I will pull up the plan and I know Mason's looking for see if there's any open orders. I believe this one was fully closed out, but that's just from my memory. But again, the applicant on this lot, 3 Farmview Lane, is looking to install a pool with patio, associated retaining wall, and various plantings along the property line. As Mason had mentioned, there was some history with some drainage here. So as part of the planning board closing out, we had constructed a swale along the property line to kind of direct everything into the swale and back towards the wetland. The remainder of the site is all lawn. The entire rear of this property is lawn. Again, we have erosion control shown around the limit of work. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Okay, Mary, questions for TJ?
Assuming the patio around the pool is gonna be impervious, is that right?
Yes.
And, the 100-foot buffer zone is the further, okay, there it is. Yep, thank you. So you're outside mostly outside the 50, and then the squares next to the pool, is that another little terrace area? What is that there?
Yeah, that's going to just be like a 3x3 stones kind of inlaid just into the ground as like a seating area. So not fully impervious, but for the most part, kind of like a 6-inch gap between each of the 3x3 stones.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mary, I'll circle back if anything arises you want to talk about. Woody, any questions for TJ on this submittal?
Yes, I was curious as to where the farm road was because I was confused as to which one we were looking at earlier. Now I fully understand. This is the one on the southerly side of the property. Is there stormwater calculations involved in the impervious surface? And
No.
Can the swale handle it?
No, so with the swale, really it was just kind of some of the downspouts were just kind of falling here and going onto the abutting property. So in the field and alongside with Joe Sawatka, we kind of just shaped a little swale to keep any water that came here and just keep it on the property and run towards the wetland. As far as stormwater calculations for single family residential developments, not required to provide any stormwater calculations. And then ultimately any stormwater from this would run, off towards the rear of the property. And anything in this area that was of concern would make it into the swale and just convey down towards the wetland.
Okay. That's my concern is keeping the water on the property because there were problems.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the intent is just to maintain that swale. So any work we have shown proposed is outside what's been constructed as part of that swale.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Mick, any questions on this project for TJ?
Yeah. What is the net gain or net loss of impervious surface?
I don't have a total calc on the square footage, but I could provide that to the commission. I would say probably about 1,800 square feet, just kind of eyeballing it.
That would be plus impervious.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be important to provide that.
So Mick, that would be beyond the 50-foot buffer, that would be in between the 50 and 100-foot buffer. Within the 50-foot buffer, I think that would be a question as well, which only looks like it's a small fraction of it. TJ, you doing the calculations as we're,
No, sorry, I don't have CAD open at the moment, but I could. Yeah, if there are no other questions or concerns, I can try to do that on the side if that helps the
Okay,
commission
well-
make a decision.
I could, if I could ask a question as well, Bob, what's the
Yeah.
distance between the sort of southern end of the pool and the swale? You know, that impervious area right there.
Yeah,
The pool to, yeah, how wide is the impervious area from the edge of the pool to the edge of the patio?
this, it's about 7-8 feet.
Okay, that, because one thought would be to just shorten that up just a little bit to get some more infiltration, if it's draining in that direction towards the swale, to give it a little bit more capacity, because you are adding a lot of impervious area there, so.
Yeah, and this would mostly swale, or not swale, but flow kind of this little portion would get in, and really over here would mostly just flow that way. Anything north of here would kind of just either obviously flow into the pool itself or flow down this way and completely avoid
So it is a pretty
anything.
small drainage area, okay,
Yeah, it's really just limited to this area here.
okay.
okay. Mick, why don't I hold on you and see if anyone else has any questions, and then we'll come back to impervious increase.
Oh, fine.
That's okay. Diane, any questions for TJ on this project?
No, nothing. Thank you. That hasn't been brought up. Thanks.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Although, if you could put the plan back up, TJ.
Hold on one sec. Oh, why won't it let me click on Zoom again?
The
This.
internet gods are fighting you tonight. that's all.
Yeah, I'm trying to move windows up and down and it's
Yeah.
not loving it. Here we go. Did that
Yeah,
pop back up okay?
Yeah,
Okay.
it did. So that area between the pool and the proposed deck, kind of dead center there,
Mhm.
is that the line where it's gonna flow one way and the other?
Yeah, it's
Kind
kind
of
of,
just get an idea of the topography on the,
yeah, there's probably gonna be a real slight slope away from the house.
Gotcha.
So really, once you get to this point, anything that flows here is ultimately gonna run into the pool. And really, it's just this area here that's gonna make it this way. And even here is a little questionable because this will more likely run that way. Oops. So it's really kind of this outline here that would be making it to the swale.
Can you just zoom out a little bit
Yeah.
to see the topo elevations? 18, 17.
Yeah, so it's about a 2 to 3 foot grade change, kind of from back of house to the 50-foot buffer zone
Okay.
line.
All right, I'm gonna circle back to Mary. Mary, any other questions for TJ on this one?
Looking for the minor activities that are exempt under the regulations and conversion of lawn to accessory uses to residential structures such as deck sheds, patios, blah, 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 provided they're more than 50 feet away from the BVW. And then there's some reference to riverfront area, which doesn't apply here, is exempt, so. It's only the, really the patio that's in the 50-foot, inside the 50-foot, that would not be exempt.
Okay, are you talking the 3x3 squares there?
Yeah.
That, okay.
Yeah, anything that's, if that's the 50-foot line, is that right?
Yes,
TJ?
yeah,
Yeah.
we kind of like tucked the wall just around it.
So I have no issue with this. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. All right, Mick, I'm gonna circle back with you. What are your thoughts on that? And,
No, I think Mary clarified that with the 50
Okay.
buffer. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
okay. All right, Diane or Woody, any further questions for TJ on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thanks,
Okay.
Bob.
All right, Mason, do you have any further comments or questions on this one?
Nothing right now.
Okay, do we have any members from any raised hands from the public? If anyone would like to comment on this project, just give us your name and address. Okay, hearing none. Do any members have any requests for additional information? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to issue a negative finding for 3 Farmview Lane.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
yes,
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Thank you, TJ.
Thank you.
Okay, now next matter, we have 3 open enforcement orders. They require no action at this time. And Mason, I'm assuming probably when we get to the May meeting that you'll have done an inspection and see if there's anything, if we can close those out.
Yep, will do.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have no extension request tonight. We have no certificate of compliance request tonight. Okay, moving on, continue public hearing. DEP file number 0501444. 80 Northern Boulevard. Applicant is submitting a notice of intent for demolishing and removing existing single-family dwelling and garage. And the construction of new single-family home will follow the demolition process. Additional site improvements are also outlined in the NOI. The project site is located on or within a primary funnel dune. Mason, can you provide an overview on this for us?
Yeah, so at the last meeting, I think we had a couple of comments that we wanted them to fix. So they've updated plans since then, reducing all the clean wash stone to underneath the house, maintaining the lawn and kind of grass patch at the beginning southern end of the house, and then complying with the parking compliance as well for amount of spaces. So those changes have been made, and with that, I will hand it back off to TJ for his presentation.
Good evening, everyone. TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering here on behalf of the applicant. I will throw the plans up. So as Mason had mentioned, at the last meeting, there was discussion regarding the amount of parking on site. So we had taken actually some of the feedback from Attorney Roloffs regarding the potential parking layout. So we've removed all the crushed stone parking in front of the proposed dwelling, and just at this point proposing to maintain the existing pavement. We do still have the crushed stone under the building. We have added kind of an extension just from the existing walkway to make it to the dwelling. All this area is currently building, so that would just be kind of an addition to that. We do have a little sliver of crushed stone here, and the only intent of that is to be able to kind of drive under the building without driving over, I guess just sand. But so this area is all currently within the existing footprint. So with that, that's really all of the changes that were made. We'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay. All right, so team, we did have in the Dropbox, there were some abutter comments that were sent in. Mason, do you want to did we just have them? Was it just from Jerry and Bobby Clymer?
I believe that was all we had. Let me double check.
Okay. Jeff, I see your hands up, but we're going to go through the members first, then we'll open it up to the abutters.
Yeah, I believe Jerry's comments were the only ones that were received.
Okay. All right, questions from the members. Mary, questions on this this filing?
no, I think I missed some of the discussion last time, so I'm gonna take it in, and I
Okay,
don't have any comments at this point.
okay, I'll circle back if you have any. Woody, any comments in this one?
no, it looks like all the questions we had previous meeting have been addressed. So no, I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Mick, how about yourself? Any
Yeah,
questions?
no further questions, Bob.
Okay. Diane, any questions for TJ on this project?
I look quick, but what happened to that, like that 1 foot bump out that's like right before where the door is now? That's there or gone? I know the crushed stone is gone, but
Sorry,
yeah, right there, right where, I think it's there.
this here
So,
or this
yeah.
here?
They were talking about, it was 1 to 2 feet high. It's like a little rounded area
Yeah.
that they were calling it sort of like a dune almost.
Yeah, so that area is all within here. So we're proposing to maintain all of that.
Okay.
All we're proposing to change is the current dwelling is here, so the walkway ends at the dwelling, and we're just looking to continue that to the proposed dwelling. And there's a small corner here of crushed stone that we would just want to put in to be able to actually drive into this part of the building without just driving over sand.
Okay.
You
Thank
know what,
you.
Diane, what I made, TJ, why don't you show us on the existing plan, if you go back, where you're talking about there? I think
Yeah. Yeah, so
that-
here's that
that's-
same walkway
Gotcha.
that we had shown.
Okay.
And again, it kind of ends here. And then we kind of have that little section of crushed stone that we're proposing kind of in this area, just to be able to stay on this edge of pavement and get under the proposed building.
Okay, and you're not disturbing that grassed area we focused on at the last meeting, that's staying intact.
Correct. Yeah, all this remains as is.
Okay. All right, I don't have any questions at this time. Jeff, you had your hand up. We're gonna open this up to members of the public. Jeff, if you just give us your name and who you're representing here tonight, I guess.
Yes, thank you, Jeff Roloffs, representing the abutters, Tim and Anna Drost, who live next door. Can I quickly share my screen? I've got just
Certainly.
a few slides that'll help me walk through my. I think, Mason, you need to
Yeah.
authorize it.
Should be good to go.
All right. Okay, so you've seen this slide before. And I know, Mary, you missed the last meeting, but so I'll just quick, this is a view of the front. My client lives here to the south, or my clients, and this dune here is one of the primary topics of concern, as we've stated over and over again. This is the property, and just getting to some of the comments I want to highlight in my presentation here. Before we get there, I do want to just highlight the fact that this is one of the few properties along this skinny stretch of sand here on Plum Island where the area behind the house is not vegetated. And as I understand it, there's a lot of history associated with that, going back to the time period before the wards even owned it, and some enforcement actions that took place responsive to the prior owners coming in with a bulldozer and clearing this area. But the general point here, though, is that there's an area behind this house that's been aggressively and historically maintained, basically to preclude what would otherwise be the natural growth of vegetation, right? So some of my comments get to that topic. So just getting to the revised plan, I just have it here in case we need to refer back to it. But a few features I wanted to just highlight related to the current plan. So on the left here is the existing conditions portion of the plan. I've overlaid the proposed building just so you can see that there is actually, TJ, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but part of that grassy area actually extends into the area below the proposed house. I'm assuming that the proposal is to take that out and backfill it with stone. I don't know. That's not a huge issue for us, but I just wanted to point out that there is going to be an alteration to the vegetated dune out here. The building has been pushed more seaward than the existing structures. So you can see here that there's some portion of sand below the outside footprint. Now the building is elevated, right? So I acknowledge that. In terms of parking, we don't have any significant issue with respect to the parking. We appreciate that they revised it. I just wanted to point out the parking pattern that's going to be allowed under the current proposal. easily 8 spaces. Is that an expansion of what's there? I don't know. I just raised the question. We have some issue with the stone backfill being proposed throughout the entire area under the building, just because to some extent that impedes one of the benefits of elevating the structure. One of the benefits is to allow free movement of sand. So you'll see in a minute that we're proposing that some portion of it be backfilled with sand. The biggest issue, or one of the bigger issues that we have, is just they're backing off of the proposed mitigation plantings. So you'll remember a couple hearings ago, they had actually proposed some plantings back in the frontal dune area seaward of the building, and in other areas, and they've backed away from that. I'm assuming it's just because they've come around to preserving this vegetated dune area in the front, but we think some vegetated restoration would be warranted. So again, just a view of the front of the building, all around the existing structure, along the street and between my client's house and the southern sides of this existing building are currently vegetated areas. This area up here is mowed. They're now proposing to preserve that, which we appreciate. One of our requests would be to just let that naturalize and to extend this fence that's already here that comes over to my client's property, to extend that. And I think that they proposed that in their narrative at the last meeting, but it's not reflected on the plan. So just getting to some of the requests that we have for the commission's consideration. Starting here in the front, the limit of work that's shown on the current plan is still tied into the previous proposal, so it doesn't actually protect this vegetated dune area in the front. So the first request is that they be required to shift the limit of work to protect that area as they're proposing to do. The second point would be to provide long-term protection of those areas. Really, it's to prevent parking and pedestrian use of the area that they're getting credit for protecting by extending that fence along the front and ideally even along the perimeter of the grassy area, just to prevent people from walking over it with any frequency. Third, they've got a limit of work shown on their plan here that's really surrounding the existing structure. So I don't contest the limit of work in this area south of the proposed building. But we do think rather than just backfilling it with sand, which then allows it to be to be actively used, I don't know, fire pit area, I don't know what else, but there's a lot of ability to walk under this building to get out to the rear of the building. You don't need to preserve this area as a pedestrian route. So we believe pretty strongly that it's reasonable to require the applicant to replant this area, to restore it to a vegetative dune state after they've, at the end of the construction process. And then with respect to all the stone under the building, there's two purposes of what we're proposing here, and that is to continue to use the stone as they're proposing where they want to park, and they've got some utilities, as I understand it, in those areas and want to be able to walk through that. But we're requesting that the commission require that the southern sort of third, the 2 bays on the southern side of the building, be backfilled with sand. And that the pedestrian route that they seem to want to have here, but I'm assuming this path here is to allow a pedestrian route under the building that doesn't involve conflict with the car spots, to define that walking trail. And it's partly just because it's going to be there. We know it's going to be a pedestrian route, but also to encourage people to walk there and not be walking on the dune, which we're hoping will be revegetated post-construction. So this is what I've entitled the baseline improvements. Keeping in mind that the local bylaw actually seeks to provide enhanced protection. The ideal, I think if they had a wetlands consultant involved from the beginning, you've heard me gripe about that before. I have a lot of respect for TJ's work. I just want to be clear about that, but he's not a wetlands consultant. So going back and forth between these two slides, what we really think should be done here is to take advantage of this opportunity to get some vegetation around the proposed structure. more similar to what we're seeing on all the adjoining, the nearby properties. What I did here is I followed that 18-foot contour. Our request is that they plant to the east of that 18-foot contour, as well as on the other side of the building. There's no reason to keep that open for another pedestrian route. You've got the public access on the other side of that fence. You've got the entire building that you can walk under. So what I'm showing here is planting post-construction and then another fence run there just to keep people from, pulling their car into it or walking over it on any frequent basis. So these are the additional requests that we'd have. Of course, you want to preserve a route out to the beach. And that's it, really. I've got other slides here in the event they're relevant to questions that might come up, but that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. TJ, hold your responses until we hear all any additional questions, and I have some comments I want to add as well. Jerry, you seem to have your hand raised. Do you have a comment you want to make?
Yes, I'm at my daughter's house, so my name is not Abby, it's Jerry. But I think Jeff's comments are very well taken. And I agree with all of them, except I think the limit of work should be, and I wrote this in the comments that I submitted in writing, should be probably no more than 5 feet away from the house. There's no need to work more than that distance away from the house. So if the fence were extended on the south side of the house at about a 5-foot distance, that would at least keep that existing grass area untrod on and unused until they do any further planting there. The same thing in the front of the house. The fence, the construction fence, should be very close to the house. There's no need to extend it out over the dune. So those are so I agree essentially with all that Jeff has said on other issues. I have 2 other issues which I just at least want to mention. I believe that the wetlands bylaw does not permit creating additional parking underneath the house. There's under the bylaw, if a property in the velocity zone like this property has 2 spaces, it's not allowed to develop any new parking spaces. And these are certainly new parking spaces underneath the house. So I wish that the Conservation Commission would adopt that view. I think one of the issues is that if you permit parking under the house in an unlimited way, you're going to promote this kind of design, which has a house that's 10 feet above the street level, and where parking is allowed for, in this case, you could have at least 8 cars and possibly more. And what's going to happen to a house like that is going to be rented, as this one has been rented in the past, and it's going to bring a lot more people, a lot more activity, a lot more impact on the fragile area that we have. So I think that's the purpose of that restriction in the wetlands bylaw, and I believe that you should. I wish the Conservation Commission would adopt that. I'm going to argue the same thing to the zoning board when it gets to that point. I also have a comment here that the height of the building is unnecessarily high, except for their desire to have parking under it. It doesn't benefit the people, and it certainly doesn't benefit the rest of the neighborhood or the feeling of Plum Island to have houses that are that high above the grade level. There's no need for it. The base flood elevation is 16 feet here, and the ground level is 17. So there's no need to raise the building. Although probably think it makes sense to raise it somewhat, but not 10 feet. So those are my comments.
Okay, are there any other comments, any other raised hands from the public at this time? Jason?
Seeing none.
Okay, is there anyone present that would like to speak on this? Okay, so just going back, so this has been, I think, this is the fourth time, is this the third or fourth continuance on this one, TJ?
I believe this is the fourth hearing.
Okay. I mean, I look at this and I think it's substantial improvement to the function of the dune in this area. We're eliminating a soil-bearing foundation that was larger in scope and a garage. The proposed footprint is less than the existing footprint and it's fully elevated. From the parking standpoint, the existing pavement is grandfathered. They're entitled to maintain that as a non-conforming yard feature. They were not allowed to expand it. My interpretation and the commission's interpretation of the parking regulation was to minimize eliminating vegetation while also providing the ability to get cars off the street. I was involved in this bylaw when it was drawn and actually presented it to town meeting, so I'm pretty familiar with the intent. We have to keep in mind, this is private property. We don't control, the Conservation Commission doesn't control the height of a building. That's zoning and the building department. The elevation, what's the median elevation here that you're proposing, TJ?
For which aspect?
Well, on the height of your median elevation of your roof line.
The
35 is the zoning.
Yeah, we have a mean elevation is 58, so the total height is 33 feet.
So you're well within the allowance of zoning. And so I'm going to stop there. TJ, you heard the comments that were made and request of suggestions. Mason, what was the last comment we had from DEP when they reviewed the plan?
Last from DEP was on April 1st with not these revised plans, but the previous ones. And the reviewer at DEP was satisfied with the revisions. They said that they took into account all the comments and there's nothing further to add.
And the only real revision of this is they've eliminated additional parking in that paved area on the south side.
Correct.
Leaving that as a grassed area. So just Mary, because you weren't I don't think you weren't at that meeting, just to kind of give you a recap on this. So TJ, do you want to respond to any of the other questions that were raised?
Any other proposed improvements, I would have to defer to Al Ward, who I believe is on the call as far as additional plantings or anything like that. Attorney Roloffs is correct. That small portion of the front area that falls under the building would be removed. It's currently planters. I don't, obviously we don't have an objection to moving the erosion control line up around the existing lawn area out front. I mean, it is a quasi retaining wall. It just will get a little funky, having a real tight area around that front, but we are proposing to protect that and keep that in place. As far as anything else, Al, if you're on, I don't know if you'd want to address any of the other suggestions made by Attorney Roloffs.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else that I'd like to do to this plan. I mean, I agree with you that it is a drastic improvement. We took into account all the concerns brought up the last meeting and decided to change the plan, to accommodate the requests and keep the parking unchanged, keep the lawn area. DEP is very satisfied with this as far as everything goes. They don't see need for more planting and you know, I think TJ's worked really hard on this, and I'd like to acknowledge his expertise and efforts on this as well. But other than that, I don't really have any other comments at this point.
Okay, I'm going to open this back up to the members for any follow-up questions based on the recent discussion. Mary, do you have any follow-up questions on this project or any of the comments that the abutters had offered?
No, I always like to see more plants, more planting. But I missed some of the discussion, so I won't presume to understand how that was agreed upon, so. Or not agreed upon, discussed anyway.
Yeah, TJ, why don't you, originally you had proposed some plantings when you were encroaching into the dune and outside the footprint of the existing structure, as I recall. And then you reduced the size of the proposed building and you've kept it primarily within the footprint. The rear property line has jogs out the back. It's not a straight line, but you're not going any further seaward than you already had a setback on. Am I correct in that, TJ, that the original, when you were getting into the dune, we were looking for mitigation when you were encroaching on the southern dune?
Correct. Yeah, I can throw the plan back up and just
And-
show.
And then when you kept it within the existing footprint,
Yeah,
you
so
eliminated the garage, it minimized, didn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Initially, we had this building tucked up over here. You know, there was going to be some vegetation that was removed in this area here. This limit of work is about a foot off of the existing dwelling, which is why it's such a funky shape.
Right.
To really preserve everything we can over there. After further discussion, and the removal of the garage is really the biggest change of what we had discussed at the last meeting, Mary. Previously, we were proposing to keep the garage that was here. So that's now removed, and we've kind of stuffed the building up as to the north pretty much as far as we can, where, you know, 9 inches off of the setback line. We now conform with the front setback, side setbacks. So we've tried to balance both, you know, conservation and zoning, with that aspect of moving it as far north away from that dune as possible. And then, yeah, as far as the vegetation, we were initially proposing mitigation plantings similar to the Attorney Roloff's sketch. It was slightly different, but, you know, we did show some areas here, some areas here. And that was kind of to replicate for any of the disturbance we were having up here initially. And then once we've removed that, we could subsequently remove the replication plantings.
Okay, Mary, anything else before I move on to
No,
Woody? Okay, thank you, Mary. Woody, any questions for TJ on this matter or the discussion raised by the abutters?
Just a few comments. I think that there's been a lot of benefits with what we've seen here tonight. I will agree, I guess, with Mary and the attorney representing the neighbor. The plantings would be nice in those areas. It would only further in the future invite the dune to get bigger and stay healthy. But other than that, I don't have any other comments or questions.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Mick, any comments on this one?
Yeah,
or
I
questions?
just had a question for Jeff. I know at the southern portion of the property or underneath the house, you're proposing that they install only sand. And I was just wondering, what, you know, what's your justification for that? I mean, they've already pulled the house significantly back from the dune, which was your original discontent, I think. And now you want to change how they, I guess, access that building underneath where it is. I think with the building over, it's essentially impervious, but I don't know, Jeff, if you can just lend some information on that.
Been a huge hit.
Yeah, so the sand suggestion is not something we feel very strongly about. The bigger point is one that's consistent with what we've said right from the beginning, which is we really don't think it's beneficial to the dune long term if the project is set up in a way that invites active use of the dune areas on either side of the house. So it's not necessary to have any activity on either side of the house. When you've got a house elevated up 8 feet, you can walk under it, right? They're already proposing a path, a pedestrian route to an area under the house where they can walk without conflicting with the car parking bays. So we don't feel that strongly about the sand, except it seemed to make sense because one of the benefits of elevating a house is to allow sand to move freely in these areas. So if you can incorporate sand rather than stone, we thought that was a benefit. But even more important is the plantings that we're suggesting. Even if you were just to confine it to the areas on the south side of the house that are going to be disturbed by the limits of work, they're going to backfill that with sand. And same with the north side. So this house is going to be elevated, it's going to have sandy areas on either side. And if there's nothing to restrict it from happening, I know that the Wards have said that they plan to live here, but at some point they may sell the house or they may decide to rent it. There's nothing to stop them from doing that. If they've got renters here, they're going to be, just open sandy areas surrounding this house. People are going to just walk over them, or they may have a fire pit out there. So we're just proposing reasonable measures to try to constrain those kinds of activities to under the footprint of the house. We're fine with that. And the areas behind the house that are already disturbed, I mean, obviously the more plantings, the better, but particularly on the area on the south side of the house, because my clients want to make sure that dune that's become well established there just continues to exist.
Well, I think they've already, by pulling the southern line of the house back, they've made significant concessions to
I
We-
agree.
opening that dune area. And, by proposing, where the walkway is and where where you are asking them to extend the fence, there would be no vehicle access to that area. So, I just think it's, I think you should reconsider your request in that area where they're already limiting access underneath that building. It's an impervious building over it. And it's no different than the surface that's 20 feet north of that. So,
Yeah, it's, the other thing too, Mick, I mean, we're talking about private property. People do have the right to use the property, as all the neighbors get to use their property.
right.
From my perspective, this is a dramatic improvement over what was there. DEP has said it meets their requirements and performance standards. And as presented, it seems to me that this proposed project meets our bylaw and the performance standards of the dune. It's a vast improvement. Many other projects that come before us don't dramatically have a positive benefit like this project, but Nick, anything else before I move on?
No,
to Diane?
that you put it perfectly, Bob. I just
Okay.
think these
Diane,
people,
do you have any comments or questions regarding what the abutter said or what TJ has responded?
No, I mean, this has been debated for many weeks. We can't make them take up the pavement that's there, and I think they're doing everything that they can do. I would like to see them agree to some plantings. I don't think that would hurt anybody, but other than that, I'm good.
Okay.
Excuse me,
Okay.
may I, my name's Tim Dross. May I say a couple words?
Okay, yeah, Tim, give us your address.
Yep.
Are you in a butter or live in the neighborhood? Just so we have some reference.
Sure. So I live right next door, 76
Okay.
Northern Boulevard. So what our concern is, and I appreciate the improvements and all the things that we've talked about, and this has been multiple weeks. But what the concerns we bring up today are the same concerns that we talked about in the past. And while we debated this back and forth, the original plans just a couple weeks ago had plantings on the side, right? Because I appreciate the private property piece of it. And I understand the benefits of raising the house, right? And I also respect the neighbor, but with that said, raising a house brings other problems to that dune to the right side because of wind load on going underneath that house and causing scour to the dune. So that's an issue, right? So while it's getting raised, there's not, now they've taken out the plantings to the right side that they proposed to do before. And while there's benefits to raising the house, there's also, by raising that house is going to cause scour to that area. And while we requested somebody with a wetlands that can measure that, our request hasn't been considered. There is issues with that area because they're going to be working in their area right now. On that right side of the house, there is dune grass there. So there's nothing on the plans to say that even the dune grass that's on the right side of the house, even though they're moving the house, while there's some benefits to that, there's plenty of studies saying, well, with that, it's going to cause scour and start collapsing that dune. So while I appreciate the private property piece, that is a very sensitive area, and the dune protects all the neighbors. The other piece of this, so, you know, at minimum, we're not asking for anything more than was previously discussed with us. We're not continuing to try to find something new with the property to keep adding to this. We had just 2 weeks ago, there was plantings to the right because we all know that the grass protects that dune. That also, and the reason why we thought we're not parking under there, putting the sand underneath the house, one of the members' question, is going to promote dune grass growth and flow of sand underneath the house to counter the scour that's going to happen on that dune. And if it starts scouring on the right side, they're using it for path area or work area or whatever they want to do, then it's going to start undermining the dune. So this is not anything other than, that's just the science of what happens. So the plantings are needed to hold that in place because the house being raised is going to cause that issue. Just 10 years ago, that dune's grown tremendously. So now, while we're putting something up in the air to protect flooding, well, then it causes some other issues. Hence why we really should have, because of the sensitive area where it is, there should have been a wetlands protection or some study on this, whether it was in the footprint or not. I appreciate the benefit, but that dune is super sensitive, not only to my house, and just 10 years ago, right behind our houses, there was no dune.
Look at, I'm just gonna ask you to wrap
One-
up.
one-
If
one-
you
one
could
other
wrap
thing.
up, please, because
Yeah.
we've got a long agenda tonight.
One
We've
other thing.
already had a broad discussion about this. But
Yeah.
I think a point you have to understand, the applicant has no choice. He can't do the project without elevating it.
Oh, I'm not saying he doesn't have to.
So the.
What I'm saying, Bob,
You're-
what I'm saying is there's dune grass there now, and we got to protect the dune, and it's part of my house. The other piece of it is on the original plans, the fence was on the plans, and part of the plans in it left. It's not described on the new plans. So we feel great that the house is where it is right now. What I'm saying is, hey, we're improving one thing, but subtracting what we all talked about on the right side with the plantings for the dune grass and the fence staying. None of that's on the plan right now. And it was just there a couple weeks ago.
It's a completely different plan at this point as far as.
But the
what
dune's
was
still
done.
there.
Yeah, and they've moved further away. In their bylaw, we can order, of course, anyone to put a fence in. And if they would like to, it doesn't require a building permit and it has to be 50% open.
No, but the
But
fence is there now.
No, exactly, but it's the owner's prerogative. There's nothing in our bylaw that says we have to require a fence. So Jerry, you have your hand up. If you have something new to add to the question, it's not just a rehash of what you, Jeff, and everyone else has said, because I'm about ready to move on this.
It wasn't clear whether the applicant's engineer agreed to move the construction fence closer to the house rather than around the old footprint.
My
And
understanding
also-
is the owner is submitting this plan for our consideration tonight as presented. and
Well, I
without
wish
modification.
you would think about that issue as well as the fence along the street and to keep people off the dune. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Bob,
Jim.
Bob, could I respond to a couple of those quickly?
Yes, please, go ahead, TJ.
Sorry, so just lastly, on the limit of work, this line is offset from the foundation about a foot from the existing foundation through here. So we're definitely not 5 feet off, but really try to minimize that as much as possible. As far as the fence, we're proposing to keep the existing fence. Initially, we were talking about taking some of it out and then tying back. At this point, we're just proposing to keep the fence as it is today. With regards to Mr. Dro's comments, we did have some plantings back here as part of mitigation for when the house was up close here and we were disturbing vegetation. Anything between this bold line and your property line is all going to remain as it currently is today. So this is vegetated. We don't plan on touching it. We're not proposing anything in there. So this is all going to stay as it is today, essentially to where the house is now. Give or take 6 inches of pulling that foundation out. We did not have any plantings proposed in this area. We were showing some back here, again, as part of mitigation of tucking the house up this way. So just a couple of quick things that I wanted to touch on.
I mean, one of the things too is when the commission gets to a certain point in the process, a typical special condition is any disturbed vegetation to be, restored to like kind, within the area limits of construction. Okay, I'm going to circle back with any of the members. Anyone have any further comments or questions?
Nope.
Do any members have a request for additional information, plan amendment, or adding additional content to this notice of intent? Okay, hearing none. I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Okay, roll call, all in favor, Mary? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Abstain.
Okay. Woody,
yes.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. All right, team, at this time, this is when we discuss special conditions before we consider a motion on an order of conditions. So traditionally in the past, we have a usual general conditions. Certainly as a special condition, we would want to consider including something that any disturbed area within the limits of the work area be restored with vegetation if it's disturbed. Knowing that not all of that area has vegetation. But I think that the pre-construction meeting with the agent, we could go over that and ascertain what the limits would be of planting. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add before okay, Diane, anything you want to suggest?
No, there had been some discussion about the way the construction was going to take place, so it would not be on the south side where the dune was.
I think because of the area of limitations of work with the fence, I think TJ walked us through it that where the driveway is, they'll be pulling it from that area there.
Okay, great.
And they can't go outside the limitations of the.
I know that
Okay.
I'm abstained, but just as a practical matter on the erosion control barrier, once the house is down, it can be moved and adjusted.
Okay. All right, anything else? Woody, anything you'd like to add?
No, I'm good, Bob. Thank you.
Okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for 80 Northern Boulevard with our usual conditions. And Mason, you caught the 2 additional special conditions of disturbed areas within the limits of work. And Mary, you wanted the maintain or restore or move the, restate, Mary, what you would suggest to them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've abstained, so I can't really
wait, we
Anticipate.
asked you, we're asking for,
I was only looking at the plans and thinking that the erosion control barrier, once the house is down, can be straightened out and moved closer to the proposed building so that you redefine the limit of work from that point on.
so I think maybe something that maintain erosion control until the yard is, revegetated. But at one point upon, we're gonna want that removed at the time of certificate of compliance,
So it's not really, it's not erosion control, it's just a limit of work, because there's no,
right,
not controlling erosion on the dune, so
right.
it's just a limit of work barrier, and that limit of work can move closer to the house as the work is progressing.
And you're basically saying, Mary, on the southern side, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I get concerned about is, and just being in the construction business, they've already have the basic minimum you can have for limits of work and to be able to perform the work, but
But they'll have more room once the house is down, that's what I'm saying, on that south side.
I think they're
Okay.
anticipating that to pick that up as workspace. Right now, the limit of work is only a foot off the existing house, Mary. So it's gonna be about 4 or 5 feet off the proposed house, which is,
It looked like it was more than that on the plan, that's why.
okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for 80 Northern Boulevard with the usual conditions and the special conditions which is cited.
So moved.
Second,
Nick? Diane? Okay, roll call vote, all in favor. Mary, you're abstaining?
Staying,
Okay, Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, thank you, Al. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, next matter is an amendment request, DEP file number 0501435. Sunset Club. Applicant is submitting an amendment to the current order of conditions. That includes the installation of a 40 by 40 open pavilion structure. The submission addresses the impacts of new resource areas and any changes to stormwater management. Kim, if you recall, at our last meeting, the commission had no outstanding issues, and the applicant requested us to hold final action pending a stormwater review and analysis that they've asked I think to expedite the timeline, that it be done by the Conservation Commission. And so Mason, was that a decent recap of where we were on this one?
Yep. So from the sounds of it, it sounds like they're still gathering the stormwater letter or report, and that should be ready to go for tomorrow, and then Joe Sarwaka can review. But as of right now, the applicant's representative has requested a continuance to the 5/6 meeting.
Okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to continue this public hearing at the applicant's request to our May 6th meeting.
So moved.
Right, second?
second,
Second.
Okay, Mary?
Had to unmute.
Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary?
yes,
Woody?
yes,
Nick?
Aye.
Diane?
Yes.
And Bob Connors votes yes. Okay. Okay, next order of business is a continued public hearing, DEP file number 0501445, 7 Marsh Ave. The applicant proposes to install a seasonal dock for the use of a single-family home located at 7 Marsh Ave. The permanent access walkway is proposed above mean high water, and the walkway will use open flow decking. Mason, where are we at on this one?
The applicant's representative has requested a continuance to the 5/6 meeting. I believe they're just updating some plans.
Okay. Okay, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing at the applicant's request to our May 6th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Diane, and was that Woody or Mick?
Mick,
Okay. Okay, roll call, all in favor. Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
All right,
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, next matter is DEP file number 0501443, 3 Central Street. The applicant is submitting an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation to confirm wetlands boundaries on a parcel on Central Street. Mason, can you give us an overview on this one?
So this one, Heidi Gaffney is gonna be representing the town on this. I have to recuse myself from this project.
Okay, Heidi, welcome. If you want to give us your presentation.
good evening, everyone. Heidi Gaffney with Northwoods Environmental. I am basically representing the commission, acting on behalf of the commission for the review for this ANRAD. And I have been out to the site. I met with Maureen from Norse Environmental, who submitted the ANRAD on behalf of the applicant, as well as Mary Rimmer and Jerry Welsh were also present at the review. There were some flags that were adjusted, and I will go through that briefly. So actually, let me share my screen. Or, it's better yet, Maureen is on as well. So maybe I'll turn it over to the applicant's representative to present our findings, and then I can come back after.
Sure, I can do that. I'll bring in the plan for the commission.
Okay,
Sure.
yeah, Maureen, just identify yourself and your position on this project.
Sure, Maureen Harold, Norse Environmental Services. I think Mason needs to let me share the screen. I'm blocked out.
Oh, let's see if I can.
Should be good.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so this property is located at 34 Central Street, and it's at the corner of Central Court as well. We have an existing single-family dwelling with a number of trailers and chicken coops. Whoops. As you can see here, located throughout the property. As Heidi mentioned, I met with Heidi. Woody was able to make the site visit, as well as Mary Rimmer, and we walked the bordering vegetated wetland. That's highlighted in the screen color here. We made a couple of flag adjustments, and I can zoom in. We adjusted and bumped out wetland flag 15A. We bumped out wetland flag 16A. Let's go to the next page. Whoops, hold on. So 15, 16, we eliminated wetland flag 17. We bumped out wetland flag 18, connected it to the existing wetland flag 20. I had ended my wetland flagging at 23A, and it was suggested that we extend the flags along this contour just to meet the property line. In addition to that, we found 2 off-site resource areas. I am going to skip to the last page. One of it was this isolated vegetated wetland that I just hung 4 flags off-site just so that we can document it. And the second one was this C-series wetlands. Again, this is a BVW off-site located at 2 Millstone Lane. And lastly, we had added the Zone 2 water supply district, because that is an overlay that's on the property. That was requested, so we showed that on the plan. And I'm just gonna bump up to the first plan again. There was a corrugated metal pipe at wetland flag 3A, approximately here. So we have the surveyors pick that up and show that on the plan as well. And I believe that addresses everything. Correct me if I'm wrong, Heidi.
Nope, that does address everything. That sums up our visit. The flags that were changed were, it was based on soils. The site is historically disturbed. The house was built in 1900. You know, it looks like it's probably been farmed for many years or starting back in 1900. So it was done on soils because that's what we had to go by. And the two offsite wetland areas, the one like Maureen identified as isolated, non-jurisdictional, and the other one, although not verified because they're off property, I do agree with the general extent of the buffer zone associated with the other one. And I had requested the zone 2 be placed on there. They're already aware of it. It's already on other plan sets for this property. So this way it's on the commission's plan as well for the delineation resource area review.
Okay,
And
Heidi.
just- Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead, Maureen. Go ahead.
Just one last thing to add, everything was field located by survey.
Heidi, I think it would be informative for everyone that's in attendance of the process, that this is step 1 of the process to determine the wetlands on the site, where step 2 would be coming in for an order of conditions, tying the rest of this together.
Sure.
If you could go through
Yep.
that, I think that would be
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
helpful of the limitation of what we're doing tonight versus what the next steps would be.
The next steps. Yep, you're absolutely correct. And ANRAD's abbreviated notice of resource area delineation are not something that gets submitted to commissions very often. So it's not something dealt with on a daily basis like RDAs and NOIs. So anytime an applicant wishes to verify wetland resource areas, prior to it's usually done so they can begin their planning stages. There are verifications done under a notice of intent, where somebody submits a notice of intent seeking approval to do work and the wetland line is verified at the same time. This is a process where, especially with larger parcels, this is a 10+ acres, just over 10 acre parcel. They will submit this application, which the commission, so their applicant, their wetland scientist, delineates the boundaries of whatever wetland resource areas are on site. And then the commission's role is to review those and verify the boundary through this process right here. The only thing before the commission is the boundary of the delineated wetlands as shown on the plan on the subject property. So it is this flag line, the 1A through 23A with the adjustments as made, is the only thing before the commission. There's no activity associated with it. There's no earth movement. There's no, none of that. This basically gives the applicant a known wetland line that is verified once, if the commission votes to approve it and an order of resource area delineation is issued. It locks that line in for 3 years, allowing them to plan their project around a known wetland line, so that a notice of intent comes in and things change. It can get difficult with larger projects, but as Bob stated, the limits of what is before the commission is strictly the verification of the resource area as delineated on this plan. And when ORADs are issued, there's a finding right in there. It's built into the form that no other resource areas other than what is specifically verified are being verified by the commission. So it does not preclude finding other resource areas and things like that, should things come up from appeals or abutters or something like that. But I will say we did walk the entire site, and that's why that's routine practice to avoid surprises down the road. So we did verify these flags and walk the entire site as well, and did lots of soil augering.
So So Heidi, I think that we've received a couple of communications from abutters about concerns about potential flooding and other matters like that. Mason, what I'll do is if you could forward those to both Maureen and Heidi. They're in general terms, but there were some pictures. It's not applicable on what's before us tonight. But it would be, I think, something we want to look at when we start to get into stormwater management and proposed grades and drainage and.
Correct, correct. So anything submitted by applicants, by abutters, should be acknowledged, just as you have, that things were submitted. However, anything submitted that is not directly related to the resource area boundary verification is not applicable to for the commission to discuss, and the butters or our interested parties should be made aware that they need to save those comments for when a notice of intent were to be submitted. And they can also be aware that planning board is going to be viewing this, any potential project. I believe something's been submitted to planning, but that would be an appropriate venue for them to voice concerns as well.
Okay, Heidi, I'm going to hold you there. I'm going to open this up to questions from the members. Mary, what are your thoughts on this? Do you have any questions for Heidi?
Yeah, I agreed with the changes that were recommended by Heidi, and one note is that the plan as shown, there's additional wetland boundary that's not delineated because it's on the backside of any potential work area. So if you want to pull up the plan again, Maureen, I can show you what I mean, but they haven't completely encircled the wetland. So there's a wetland series A flags, and it closes, there's a back line that, forms a polygon of that wetland. They're not asking for any confirmation of that wetland boundary on that side. So our order of resource area delineation should be specific, that it identifies and confirms only the flag numbers that are shown on the plan, and that there are additional resources on site on the west side or whatever it is of this delineated line. And also the buffer zones are not shown on this plan, and the buffer zone to the offsite wetland isn't shown. So typically in NRED plan, we would have that, so you'd know what the limit of jurisdiction would be in the future. So I would just recommend, at some point that the applicant provide that a plan showing that buffer zone offset.
Mary, would that be at this stage or would it be at the next stage when they're coming back for an NOI showing buffers?
Well, ideally it's on the plan that, you reference in the ORAD. I'm comfortable that it's, it's straightforward enough. They could submit, we close a hearing and they could submit that with a plan showing that line 100 feet offset from this boundary. It's going to be, sort of standard engineering practice offset boundary.
Okay, so you're recommending, do you want to identify the wetlands that you were talking about that were not flagged, just to have them on?
So there's one offsite wetland that is not jurisdictional.
Yep.
And it has
And
no
Maureen
buffer
showed
zone.
us that, as I recall.
Yeah, and then the other one is jurisdictional. It is offsite, but the buffer zone would extend into the project site. We should acknowledge it, but if it's not, if the buffer zone isn't shown on the plan, then it's just information for the applicant at this point that we know it's there.
Maureen, obviously it wouldn't be a high bar to add the buffers on this, correct?
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm more than happy to do that. That's not a problem.
Okay.
And-
All right, Mary, anything else before I move on to see? if anyone
No,
else
I
has-
mean, the rest of the site has really, it's steep. It has a lot of topography. It's an upland pine forest mostly. So there are a couple of borrow pits in different areas. There were some test pits that have been done. Even in those areas, the soils were not even close to being hydric. So I'm comfortable that there are any other wetland resource areas on site.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, Mary,
Yeah,
just
yes,
to
Heidi.
confirm, The wetland you're referring to with the buffer zone is the one Maureen flagged with the C series down near the fire station?
Yes,
Okay,
I believe that's correct. You want to flip to the next plan, Maureen?
Sure. Is that,
just wanted to make
It
sure I
must be,
understood.
it's gotta be, because it was the third one that we went to, so.
It was
Yes,
this one
yeah,
here.
it's right there. Yep.
Yep. Okay,
Okay. Okay, Mary, I'll circle back to after we go through the first round of questions. Anything else, Mary, before I move on?
nope, no, it's
Okay,
pretty
all right.
straightforward.
Thank you, Mary. Woody, any questions for Heidi or Maureen? On this?
No, I don't have any
submittal?
questions. I do have a question about the map we're looking at right now. Is that on the site, the Water Supply Protection District?
Yes,
Or
it
is
is.
that with someone else's road?
That's on the property, yes.
Okay, that's all, thank you for answering that question. I said I had questions. And that's all I have, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Mick, questions for Maureen or Heidi on the submittal?
No questions, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, Diane, any questions for Maureen or Heidi on the submittal?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, so Heidi and Maureen, I think Mary's brought up a good point. Is there any urgency on addressing this tonight, or can we just have you add the buffers onto the plan, put you on a next agenda and see if we could wrap everything up and not have any open issues? Is there any urgency or?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman. If the commission prefers that, that's fine. If you prefer to close it tonight and get a revised plan, that works as well.
Okay. All right, any other questions from the members before I open this up to the public?
No.
Okay, any raised hands from the public at this time, Mesa?
Seeing none.
Okay, what's our pleasure, team? Do we want to have the plan complete, or do we just want to have it as a condition? I'm open either way. I know in the
and-
past, sometimes we've required it just to be, the plan to be complete and not adding stuff to it, but.
I think if we're specific about what we're looking, to add, and it's minor, just a minor detail, I mean, technically, they've got the wetland boundary shown, so
Right.
it has to be 100-foot offset. So I think it's more of an administrative item more than anything. So I'm comfortable closing without that.
Okay, so you're looking for 50, 100-foot buffer lines?
Just
on the plan?
100-foot.
Just the
just
100,
100 foot.
okay. Okay. Marion, that seems pretty low bar to me.
No,
Okay. Heidi, you are a peer review consultant. What is your recommendation to the commission?
So my recommendation, and just to clarify, for the buffer zone piece, I definitely agree with Mary that buffer zones shown are certainly helpful. But as a practical matter, the issuance of an order of resource area delineation is specific to the actual resource area boundary. So in this case, bordering vegetated wetland, and the flags are typically specifically called out. So it will reference this, if the commission were to vote to issue, it does reference flags only, and then the 100-foot buffer zone is a matter of, it exists off of that. So I see no issue in the commission moving forward if they chose to. So the recommendation that I have for the commission would be to issue an order of resource area delineation for DEP file number 050-1446 for 34 Central Street, verifying bordering vegetated wetland resource area boundary as shown on the revised plan, and the revised plan shown tonight is dated April 9th, 2025. And specifically that the commission determine the following. So accurate flags would be wetland flag WF1A through WF14A and WF20A through WF23A. As modified would be wetland flags WF15A1, WF16A1, and WF18A1, which were added. And I would also recommend that the commission have a finding that flags WF16A, WF17A, WF 18A and WF 19A were eliminated and or deleted from the original plan.
Heidi, do you have that in writing?
I do.
Could you share that? Could you share that with Mason so he doesn't get writer's cramp when he's,
So I would,
In your
I would
letter,
actually,
I think, isn't it?
I will be the one because Mason is recused. And I am acting as the commission's agent for this one. I will be
Okay.
the one actually issuing that ORAD.
okay.
And just for the commission's knowledge, I served as a conservation agent for 15 years until recently, so.
We never would have guessed that. Heidi. Never would have guessed that.
For any comfort level in
yeah.
issuing the ORAD, but yeah, I
Okay.
will actually carry through that whole part, including mailing it to the, parties.
I will entertain a motion adopting the verbiage that Heidi just so professionally shared with us.
So moved.
Okay,
So
Mary?
seconded.
Diane, okay. Roll call. All in favor? Mary?
Oh, are we closing the public hearing first, or are we doing it both? together?
Oh, yeah, oh, no, that's right. Excuse me, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Okay, let me just do this. Do any members have requests for additional information, plan amendment, or adding additional content to this filing? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, roll call. All in favor? Mary?
Yes.
Woody?
Yes.
Nick?
Aye.
Diane?
Yes.
And Bob Connors. Okay, now back to where we should be. I apologize for skipping ahead here. I will entertain a motion to issue the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation as stated by Heidi.
So moved.
Okay, Woody,
Second?
Diane, okay. Roll call, all in favor? Mary,
Yes.
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors. So she is. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank
Heidi.
you.
Thank
So
you.
Heidi, you have my email address. If you can prepare prepare the order and send it to me, I'll add the signatures.
Absolutely. I will send it to you tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay, next
Thank
order
you.
of
Thanks, Heidi.
business. Next order of business is, Mason, what was the file number that was added? Was it 1445 or 1446 for 2 Plum Island Boulevard?
Page, a second.
1447.
Okay. 1447. Okay, next order of business, continue public hearing for DEP file number 050-1447 2 Plum Island Boulevard. The applicant is submitting a notice of intent to demolish all existing structure on the property and construct 4 residential townhouses within 2 pile-supported buildings. The project is located on Barry Beach and within the 100-foot salt marsh buffer. Hey Mason, can you give us an update of where we're at on this one?
Yep, so we just got some supplemental information at the end of last week, for the commission's review. As of right now, there are no technical comments on the DEP portal. And I believe that the commission is going to be wanting to see a third-party review on this site. And then the only question I would add to this is asking the applicant or the representative if they need to or if they have intentions to bring the proposal in front of the planning board at any point in time.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jeff,
You want me to
just-
respond?
Yeah, Jeff, if you could just identify yourself and your role in this application.
Yes, thank you. Jeff Roloff, I'm an attorney with offices in Newburyport representing the applicant and property owner. Mark Friery is the manager of the owner entity. Steve Sawyer is with us this evening as well, civil engineer. Before I get into the substance of it, can I just quick ask, Mary, I think you missed the last meeting. Have you had a chance to review the video so that you've seen the presentation on this?
No, I have not. I'm sorry. So I'll have to be quiet. tonight.
Or you could go back and watch it. I'm assuming we're going to continue the hearing.
I will going forward.
Okay.
Yes, I haven't had an opportunity this week, so
Okay, no, that's fine. Just trying to keep you qualified to participate if we can.
yes, thank you. I will definitely do that.
Right, we still are waiting for DEP comments. So with respect to the planning board, we have no plan to go to we have no reason to go to the planning board. As far as I know, we are in front of the ZBA Thursday night. That'll be our first public hearing in front of the ZBA, and we're there under the PIOD provisions for a finding special permit for non-conforming uses and structures. Let's see, I think it's worth going back to, I mean, our goal for tonight is to get any additional feedback we can from the commission, but we did submit some additional information that was responsive to some of the historical questions, Mr. Chairman, that you raised at the last meeting. Specifically, I went back, you know, the questions you raised were sort of vague, as you know, as a general question as to whether or not there were some open conservation commission issues or sort of whether some of the structures out there were lawfully existing. So I went back to some of the town files. I met with Mason. There aren't a lot in the way of conservation commission files on this. I don't know if they were mostly lost in the floods or whatever, but there's not much there. I went back to the ZBA files and got a pile of things from Chrissy and had the opportunity to review those, and as well as some liquor license materials and other documents that we compiled from my client's previous attorney who was involved with this project for many years back, you know, roughly 10 years ago. But what I found was that there's a lot of history here, some of which specifically related to the questions that you raised regarding the lawfulness of the structures on the site. And what I found and submitted to you was that, you know, these issues sort of came to a head back in the 2016, 2017 period. There was a lot of litigation. Actually, it went to we were in two different courts. I say we, but my client, the operator of the restaurant at that time, and then a slew of town officials as well as the town itself. So there were a lot of proceedings related to the structures and activities on this property, all of which were resolved in a settlement agreement, which was signed in 2018, but actually related to corrective measures that were agreed upon by all the parties, that involved, you know, relocating a couple of the sheds, removing a section of fence, and a few other adjustments to the structures on the property. Those activities were actually done in 2017, and the settlement agreement recites that they were done under the supervision of different town officials, post-construction inspections. There were a Conservation Commission determination, negative determination of applicability related to those corrective measures that was referenced in the settlement agreement, a ZBA special permit finding decision approving that work. And then everything was signed off on as reflected by the filing of a stipulation in the Superior Court action. So from what I could tell based on my file review is that all of those issues prior to 2018 were completely resolved as of the time that stipulation of dismissal was filed in Superior Court. And we're not aware of any other issues since then. But so I turn it back to you and just would add, you know, if there are specific issues that you have that you want us to try to zero in on, happy to do that. But as you know, there's a lot of history here, so we're very clear about what we're looking for.
So Jeff, Mason did send over everything you sent. I think you sent it on Friday.
Yep.
In all honesty, it was pretty substantial, and the commission really hasn't had a chance to sort through that.
Yeah, it's fine.
And so, and our bylaw gives us 7 days to kind of do that.
Yep.
The one other thing was, there was an open order of conditions that was recorded at the registry back in 2000. And we didn't see that it had ever been, a certificate of compliance was issued for that. And that, I think.
So I wasn't able to find the order of conditions that you're referring to. Mason, if you have been able to find that, let me know. We did see a reference to it on DEP's online database, I think is where we saw that, but it's not clear to me that and so I may be wrong, but if you have a copy of that, I'd like to see it. And obviously we can get that taken care of. I think that's a procedural issue, not a substantive issue.
It's just, again, one of these open issues that if we can wrap things up. Mason, you should have a copy of that. It was in the Dropbox. And if you could just share that with Jeff.
So I'll work with Mason offline to get my hands on that, and we can discuss how best to wrap that up. But again, let me
Okay.
just remind the commission, Mr. Chairman. So all of the existing structures out there, including all of the pavement on this property as part of this proposed project, are to be completely removed. The buildings are going to be replaced by 2 elevated residential buildings, each with 2 units. And then outside of the footprint of those buildings, there are going to be, sort of short driveways coming in, so parking can happen under the building. But then for the rest of the site, and I'm happy to put it on the screen if we want to, completely restored and vegetated out to the property boundaries. So
What I would suggest, Jeff, because I have
Yep.
one question, if you could put up, you had the proposed plan, you had the existing conditions and the proposed plan. There was a question that I had on the table of impacts on the proposed plan.
okay.
And I think it just needs some clarification.
All right, and just for, since Mary hasn't seen these yet, just getting you oriented to the property, you know what this looks like, you've been out there.
I know
So
it
this,
well.
this
Yes,
is,
it's,
so here's the aerial, which matches up pretty similarly to one of the plans that I submitted to you from 2017. Most recently, you'll get to that when you have a chance to review it. Another aerial here with north to the top. So here's the existing conditions. This is a stop sign that I just highlighted to get you oriented. Most of the site is either paved and used for parking, and these are the existing buildings. Proposed, that's just zoomed in existing conditions, and then proposed conditions. And we can zoom into that. So I'm sorry, you had a question about the proposed?
yeah, there was a table of impacts where that you had listed that there were 4,700 square feet of pavement being removed. And the question I had was just, I drive by this site more times a day than I probably should, just going in and out of the island. Did that include the paved area of the town-owned property? Because I don't see 4,700 square feet of pavement on the actual property.
Steve, I don't know if you're active on this meeting. Steve, I know had a conflict. So if you are, you can maybe chime in on that. I can get back to you on that, Mr. Chairman.
If you could, that was just one of the, one item that had popped up on, on this, because if you went back to your existing conditions plan,
Yep.
primarily it's that entire intersection corner from the, almost from the.
Well, let me clarify one thing. So you can see from the plan, the survey plan, that the property boundary actually curves very close to the corner of the building here, right?
Correct.
So we are not proposing to remove the pavement that's in the town, on the town property. The town may end up doing that, but what my client's proposing to do here is to just stop using it. So my client has had the continued right as part of the restaurant activities here to park and use this pavement, which is on town property.
Yeah, I think,
Getting
but
to this point. So none of the removal estimates that Steve provided in his narrative, and I'll just clarify what those are.
go to the table
or-
on impacts and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Oh, here, the zoning table?
No, it had impacts on pavement, what was coming in, what was going out.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And it listed 4,700 square feet, which probably it just doesn't sync up with what's actually on the property when you eliminate the road layout and town-owned property.
Yeah, I'm not actually seeing the table of impacts that you're referring to, unless it was on the ZBA plans. But I will say in the project narrative that was submitted with the NOI, the numbers that were provided, and this is on page 5 of the notice of intent project narrative. 4,152 square feet of structures on solid foundations to be
Okay.
removed. And then 4,306 square feet of solid pavement surfaces to be removed.
Okay, that, we have that plan in our file.
That's a project narrative that was filed with the notice of intent package, so
Okay.
that's
Can
a
we just-
narrative. Yep.
If we could verify that in fact is on the property and just not in the locus.
Yep. I assure you that we're not, yeah, that's fine. We can clarify that.
Yeah,
I
no, I just
Yep.
think you're using it as for impacts, which you want to use as an offset for mitigation. So I just want to make sure.
Yep.
It may very well be accurate. It just, at a quick blush, it just didn't seem to add up.
Yeah, and then the other number he provided was that 4,800 square feet. So all these areas that are shown as being sand and vegetation was tallied up to be 4,800 square feet. It actually might be a little bit more than that because since writing that narrative, I think Steve has expanded the plantings to the boundary all the way to the edges of the property, other than this easement area over here. So I'll get clarification for the.
Yeah,
commission.
if they could just double check
Yep.
that, Jeff,
Yep.
it's just for accuracy.
Yep, no
So on
problem.
peer review, Epsilon Associates is going to be doing peer review. It's Dwight Dunk is likely to be the one that's doing it. And he's spoke to him today and he's going to be putting together, an estimate for the escrow account.
Can I ask what the scope of the review is? Like, what are the issues that you're concerned with?
You have such a unique project here, and we're going from one non-conforming use as commercial to another non-conforming use as multifamily, and trying to reconcile it within our own bylaw, which has specific verbiage on, there's such a contradiction in our bylaw. You don't fall into a simple box first, Jeff, on this. And one of the great questions that we get is, and again, it's not wetland, it's a zoning issue, is transitioning from one non-conforming use being commercial to another non-conforming use as multifamily.
Okay, but is this being done for the zoning board or for the Concom?
No, we're going back. We have to look at this from the original administrative consent order that was the water and sewer project, led to the creation of the PIOD and the
Yep.
requirements of our bylaw.
Yep.
So it's just syncing all that together so that we're operating, within the confines of our bylaw and not getting outside of our shoes on zoning. And making sure that we're addressing the performance standards that need to be met.
Okay, under the wetlands bylaw.
Wetlands bylaw and the WPA, obviously.
Okay, I'm still a little confused as to why this project and not others in more sensitive areas such as that 80 Northern Boulevard project that are warranting peer review.
Single family home versus non-conforming use. So, and again, it's within our bylaw, it's within our discretion. And as we mentioned.
I'd like to see the scope of work, but that's fine. So
Okay, yeah,
assuming
no,
the scope makes sense.
I just wanted to share with you, you asked last week, the last meeting, who was going to be doing it. And I certainly just wanted to be able to share that with you.
Can I ask whether the commission wanted a site walk and should we aim to schedule that to make progress on that front? Is there any reason for a site walk here?
Typically, Jeff, what we found is once the technical comments come from the department, a site walk is valuable because we get to address all the issues, if any technical comments come. I think most of us are pretty familiar with the site.
Yeah, that's what I
It's
thought.
been a familiar restaurant for all of us. But like I say, typically we wait for the file number and the tech comments to get so far into it. But now that we have a file number, certainly any of the members can ask questions and we'll open this back up to the public so that what information is available, you can get some feedback on it.
Okay.
Okay. Mary, do you, I know you're getting caught up to speed here and you weren't at the initial public hearing.
No. Is there stormwater management proposed as part of this? Are we using the 4 or fewer units or actually there's not, it's only one lot. I'm not sure the stormwater regs required in this case, but I would
No.
like to check that out.
Yeah, I don't believe Steve submitted any stormwater report for this.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
we're
think
taking a
you-
huge amount of impervious surface out of here and
Yeah.
infiltrating
I
it.
think you're exempt because you're only 2 units. I mean, 2 buildings,
Right.
2 residential buildings. Are they duplexes? Is that what we're calling them?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
bel-
I don't
believe
feel a
Steve-
need to see the site because you could see it from most every angle.
Right.
From the street, and I would, I don't know whether or not it was a vote to do the independent review, or was that discussed at the last meeting? It must have been.
Yeah, it was discussed at the last meeting. We didn't actually make it a formal vote because it's allowed within the bylaw.
Mhm.
Just as we don't vote to have peer review on stormwater management when that's applicable.
I have nothing further right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Woody, any questions on this matter at this time?
Bob, I have no questions or comments at this time. I'm good, thank you.
Mick, any comments or questions at this time?
No, none for me at this time, Bob. Thank you.
Okay. Diane, any comments or questions for Jeff, or is TJ on this project with you, Jeff, or is it just?
No, Steve Sawyer with Millennium.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
For Jeff or Steve at this time?
No, they've done a very good job of illustrating everything that they would like to do. Thank you.
Okay. I don't have any further questions at this time. Mason, do we have any raised hands from the public that would like to comment on this project?
Seeing none right now.
Okay. Okay, so obviously there's going to be a site walk that's going to be scheduled in the near future, Jeff, and I would anticipate that technical comment should come out sooner rather than later. Honestly, I was surprised that they weren't already on the website, but so I think open issues is resolving the peer review and the escrow account and determining what that deposit needs to be done. It needs to be. We'll schedule a site visit. This will give us a little time to review the documents that you sent. And it sounds like from your summary that you had a settlement in the court which cleared everything up from 2017 back is what I heard
Correct.
from you.
Yep.
So that resolves one of the other open questions that I had raised.
Right.
Can I ask
So-
if there was a time frame given for the peer review to be completed? Are they going to be attending an upcoming meeting to present?
They're literally just getting involved in it, Mary,
Okay,
and
so were you
Okay.
thinking in your proposed scope that you would identify a date that they would be completed by?
you actually saw the document that I had sent them. I had CC'd you on establishing, the normal criteria for peer review.
Bob, DEP indicated that they were waiting for a fee. Would that be holding up their comments?
I think every application says that, and it's
Yeah, I know.
the right hand not talking to the left. But I guess
Yeah.
that is a question, Jeff. Well, for Steve.
Yeah, we'll check in with them. We know that the check cleared, so they've got the fee and they actually
Yeah.
cash it. So
Surprise, surprise.
we'll reach out to DP and just see who's on
Moving it
this.
along.
Yeah, we'll move it along.
Okay. So at this time, our next meeting is May 6th. Do you want to request a continuance on that? You're what, before ZBA on?
There is a file number.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, that
file
we
number,
got the
yep.
file
Okay.
number, so that
Okay.
was the 1447.
We'll so we're meeting with the ZBA this week, Thursday. I think it sounds like it's going to be contingent on how quick Epsilon can get their review done. I mean, I see this as a pretty straightforward review from the perspective of compliance with the wetlands bylaw and state regs. So and let's continue to 5-6, and if we need to continue it again,
Go
we
from
will,
there.
but we'd like to target that if we can.
Yeah, no, certainly it's,
Okay.
if that's your request.
Yes.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing at the applicant's request to our May 6th meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, Diane, Woody? Okay, roll call, all in favor, Mary,
Yes,
Woody,
yes.
Mick,
Aye.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Thank you, Jeff. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Steve.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, next matter. Mason, did we get a file number for Fatherland? I thought I saw it. I didn't write it down. What?
Yes, we did. It is 1449 050 1449.
Okay. So the next matter is a public hearing, DEP file number 05014449, 13 Fatherland Drive. Applicant is submitting a notice of intent for the installation of an in-ground pool and the addition of an addition on the existing single-family dwelling. Majority lot sits within a 100-foot buffer zone, but all proposed alteration of construction is outside of the riverfront area. Mason, can you provide an overview on this?
Yeah, so the applicant is submitting a notice of intent for a new addition on the back of the house, as well as a new deck, in-ground pool installation with some associated site work with that, including a retaining wall, changing some of the concrete pavers in the driveway to match what's going to be put in around the pool. Most of this work sits outside of the 50-foot wetland buffer, but as you can see on the site plan, some of it does fall within that 50-foot wetland buffer. Outside of that, I don't have any comments, and I would open the floor to the applicant who is here.
Okay. Who is the applicant on this?
Alok.
Okay. Hi, if you could give us
Hi.
your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Alok Dhanda. Address is 13 Fatherland Drive. I am the owner and the applicant.
Okay. Why don't you give us a
So-
presentation if you would?
Sure. So I hope you all can see this is sheet 1 of 2, and this is the existing conditions or as-built survey. It includes the flagged wetlands on the site, as well as the 50-foot buffer or setback from the wetlands. And so 13 Fatherland Drive is approximately 2.6 acres, about 113,000 square feet, of which approximately 1.6 acres is wetlands and 1 acre off upland. And so we have the primary dwelling, the main house is here with an existing deck, which is actually a 2-level deck. And when we bought the property, they had a above ground pool sitting in this area, about a 20-foot dia above ground pool level with the lower deck, which was removed at the time of sale because I think it was in disrepair. But there was an existing garage here that we converted into a detached in-law. And so there are utilities that go between the main house and the detached structure that are represented here. There's an existing landscape block retaining wall. There's about a 3-foot difference between the level up here and the level down here. And this level, the area that's fairly flat, that was flattened probably for that above ground pool, is about 8 or 10 inches lower than my basement level. And so our hope is to do an addition back here, which would be a 2-level addition. The lower level would be a walkout from the basement and further walkout to the pool. And the upper level would just be a great room that would come off my kitchen and be a second living space. And we would take the deck and put it on this side off the addition. We get a lot of sun from here. The sun sets back in this direction, but the late afternoon sun is really brutal. And so the existing decks, we have multiple umbrellas, etc., trying to keep that cool. So we like the idea of getting the deck out of the sun and on this side of the new addition. And then try to squeeze the pool in between the additions. So you'd be a minimum of 10 feet away from the new foundation. You'd be 10 feet away from all these existing utilities. And I think you'd be a minimum of 6 feet away from this existing landscape block retaining wall, which we're only going to modify really right here at the corner of the new addition to get new steps to go in. If we go back to the existing plan, it's really a patio with some steps here and then further steps up to the deck. And so this area would get modified to allow for the steps to line up beyond the addition. So we would, there's an existing fence with my neighbor at 11 Fatherland Drive. They have an in-ground pool as well. So we would basically fence between this existing fence and the house, and then from the corner of the garage across the driveway, and then fence around the back of the property back to this existing fence with 11 Fatherland Drive. And we'd comply with, you know, the building code with regards to the pool and alarming any doors, etc., that open up into the pool area, and having gates that, you know, that are self-closing and swing out from the pool area, etc. We would provide a silt fence or silt sock till the end of construction. My main construction zone is going to be right here, so I'm assuming that the contractors will use this driveway and set up along just beyond my existing garage up and down this driveway. So we'll protect this area from the from anything getting into the wetlands. And I think that's about it.
Okay. Why don't you, let me stop you there, and I will open this up to questions from the members. Mary, questions on this submittal?
It looks like all this work is on the upslope side of the existing driveway away from the wetland here. So we've got a driveway that's sort of the nearest disturbance to the wetland.
That is
And
correct.
activities are on the other side of the driveway, which is always good.
Yeah.
I think Mason had mentioned riverfront area. I know you're close to the Parker River here, so was there a riverfront area on the site? It looks like it's on
So
your
the-
lot. I don't know.
The site extends all the way to the Parker River, but
Right.
you know, the back of this structure is further than 200 feet away from the river, so I think we fall outside the riverfront
Was
area.
that confirmed by your wetland scientist?
The distance, I think we can confirm off of Mason and I did this when I was at his office. We used the satellite imaging that he had and did a quick measurement and confirmed that we were outside of the 200 foot.
Right. It has to be based on mean annual high water of the river. So it's not always something that can be picked out from an aerial. Especially in this area, it looks a little fuzzy, like I'm looking at the same aerial that probably Mason showed you, and it there's a little wiggle room there. You may be outside. It's just something that we maybe should confirm with, it looks like Wetlands and Land Management is your wetland scientist on this project.
Right. It is Bill Manuel. I
Yep.
can give him a call and ask him about that specifically. Nobody went into the wetlands. It's a trek to get to the Parker River from here, but I can
Right.
certainly re-engage him and ask him to verify that.
Right.
Okay, so you'd like to just see the setback, the 200
Yeah,
foot
just,
setback on the
I,
road? Yep.
It
We
looks like
typically
you're
see
probably
that.
outside of it. It's just it would be helpful to know, especially if this plan is going to be used for any purposes in the future.
Okay, anything else, Mary?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Woody? Any questions on this submittal?
I have no questions. My only comments, thank you for your presentation. Very informative.
No, thank you very much.
Okay, Mick, any questions on this?
No
submittal?
questions. Yes, thank you, Alok. It was a good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Diane, any questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, and you've, can I ask you what your background is? Because you've made an amazing presentation. You're
Yeah,
certainly
I'm-
not doing landscaping, but.
I'm an architect.
Okay, that,
Yeah, mainly commercial work, but yeah.
okay, yeah, that, just curious. Okay, so I think the only thing with that we're looking at is there seems to be no questions on what you're proposing to do. It's simply adding that riverfront setback or a potential, Mary, would a notation on the plan that it's outside the riverfront area if it's,
Yeah, or I mean, yeah, a notation on the plan. It is in the lot is in riverfront area. It's just a question of how far in to the project site it
Okay.
comes. So I would be satisfied with a letter from Bill Emanuel or some kind of,
yep, there's some
additional
documentation.
detail on how
Yeah.
that was determined, how mean annual high water of the river was determined and how you made that determination.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the members before I open this up to the public?
No.
Okay, Mason, are there any raised hands from the public at this time?
Seeing none.
Okay. Well, it seems that I would suggest that if you can get that documentation in, you may likely just want to request a continuance to our May 6th meeting.
Sure, I'll reach out to Bill tomorrow and see as soon as he can get out here, but yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, thank you. I'll entertain a motion to continue the public hearing at the applicant's request to our May 6th meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, Woody. Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary,
Yes.
Woody,
yes.
Mick,
All right.
Diane,
Yes.
and Bob Connors. Okay, thank you. See you on the 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one other matter under general project discussions. And Mason, why don't you present that to us? And
Yeah, so there's actually a couple of things that I wanted to share. One of them being the Open Space Committee had reached out to me and shared this list of questions with us. I think they're trying to kind of get an insight on how the Conservation Commission is and wants to be involved in open space initiatives in the future. So I figured that I would share that. And if we want to take a look at these questions now and formulate some answers, that works. Or if we want to bring this up and give the commission some time to review and brainstorm some ideas, that's
are you asking us to volunteer you for this, or?
I am not suggesting anything.
I think that's a great idea.
I second that.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
see,
that our
under the
only,
bus,
I'll
under the
third
bus.
that one.
Yeah,
as far as I know, our only active open space management that's directly under the commission is the Great Meadow, right, in Byfield?
Yeah, I am not aware of any others as
Yeah,
far as I know.
that's the only one that I have, and Woody might know, but I don't know of any others that there's no conservation restrictions that we're holding or anything like that. So
yeah,
Great Meadows, the only one
you know
that
what,
know.
I haven't had a chance to look at this, and I'll be honest, I need to get up to speed on it. So I'm just gonna suggest maybe we continue this to our next meeting under, general discussions at the end, but
is there some schedule? I mean, I know that their open space committee's been meeting for a long time and are they preparing a their final report soon, or do we have any idea what their time frame is?
Let me check.
Do they have any funding grant issues that they're trying to get?
And Mason, if you don't mind, would you share that, what you just showed us?
Yep.
via email? Thank you so much.
Yeah, maybe we can all just reply to it or something.
Yeah, so it sounds from the email that Christina had sent, it sounds like open space and recreation plan is currently being prepared. So it kind of sounds like they're in the process and just looking for additional feedback and input.
I think it's an update, but maybe it's long enough ago that it's considered a new plan now. It's supposed to be updated every 5 years.
Mason, why don't you, have you sent this to me? I don't remember seeing this.
I
It-
might have, but I will again, just to make sure.
Why don't, you know what, why don't we do this, team? I'll set up the Dropbox for the May 6th meeting, and I'll add it to that so it's accessible for us to review.
Thank you.
For the 5/6 meeting. Okay, Mason, you had a couple of other things that you wanted?
Yeah,
to-
a couple of other things. We'll start with, so both of these are inquiries from residents in town asking about work and trying to seek exemption. For one of them being Julie and Javier Marion. I see that they're on the meeting. I don't know if they're here, if they wanted to bring up anything. But from the sounds of it, they are looking to put up a shed on their property, and they are adjacent to a perennial stream in their backyard. So I think they're looking for a little bit of guidance on what's going to be needed from the commission, if anything.
Hi, can I speak?
Yeah, so just give us your name and address
Sure.
and then make your presentation.
Sure, my name is Javier Marion. I'm at 126 Main Street here in Byfield. Thank you for considering our request. So our property is up against some wetlands in a perennial stream. And we basically don't have any room to store anything. The way this property is set up, and we wanted to set up a shed, a garden shed, about 50 feet from the wetlands. It would have no foundation. It would be sit on a gravel bed, and so we were looking for an exemption to be able to set it there.
Okay, so do you have a site plan, or do you have any wetland boundaries?
They do have a site plan.
Okay, why don't you show that if you could then, Mason, and
I do not know if I'm not sure if I scanned this over. I can share the rough GIS map for the time being, and let me see if I made a copy.
What's the address again?
124 Main.
No, it's 126. Well, 120, yeah, 126.
yeah, I mean, obviously the distance from the perennial stream has a big impact on what you're trying to do.
But a shed is again, an exempt minor activity if it's more than 50 feet from the river or the BVW. There may be other resources as well, like it could be in floodplain, and that's what I was going to look at as well. But is it on? Do you need to do any clearing in order to put the shed in? Or is it on lawn?
We do not need to do clearing. I mean, we can remove grass. That's
So
about.
is it a mowed lawn right there?
It's a mowed lawn.
Yeah.
It's all
Okay.
mowed.
So then it sounds like Mason is probably going to fall under that minor exemption category unless it's in floodplain as well, in which case probably an RDA and having it elevated.
Yeah, the only comment that Julie had made that kind of made me lean on the side of an RDA rather than the exemption. She said that based on the way the yard is laid out now, with some existing rocks and boulder features, they wouldn't be able to place it outside of the 50 foot or outside of 50 feet of the mean high water line. So that was kind of my reasoning behind that.
Okay, well then they definitely would need to file in.
So the question is whether they have the exemption or they need to do an RDA and.
Right, so yeah, my suggestion was that they just put a rough drawing on the plan and identify where mean high water is, so we could see if it would be outside of that and that they could qualify for the exemption.
Yeah, or
Well,
they
look-
can put these stakes in the ground where they want to put it, and you can take a look and do some measurements there for them and see if pulling a tape from the shed corner to the nearest part of the river, if they can get it 50 feet away.
Mhm.
You know, that may be the most effective way to determine whether there's a requirement for an RDA. So what Mary has suggested is if you could stake out in your yard the proposed location with its specific size of the shed you're looking to put in, Mason, the agent, can come out and do a site inspection and that make the determination of what the next step would be, whether it's an exemption or you have to do a determination.
I don't think it's in a flood zone. There used to, because where we want to place the shed is on near the foundations of an old barn that was
Yeah.
there since 1860 or so, and all that's left is just some rocks around there. It's so there's only we're sort of limited in terms of where we can actually put a shed on this property. And that's why we're asking for an exemption.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, you're only eligible for the exemption if it meets the requirements for it being 50 feet. Otherwise, you have to file.
So you get two choices. You can submit a site plan and locate this with the distances, or you can stake it out in your yard and have Mason go over and do a field inspection and see if the exemption works for you.
And,
He's gonna be free.
Mason, didn't you already come over here?
Yeah, but I don't have any idea of where the proposed shed would be, so I can't measure out to see if it would fit for the exemption or not.
Okay, I look forward to you coming by so we can walk through the property then.
Yeah, feel free to and like they were saying, if you could just have it staked out, or if you want to update the site plan, either one works for me. But yeah, feel free to give me a call whenever, and I can make sure
Yeah,
to
I
get
mean,
out
you
there.
could just take spray paint and spray the corners that we want to put it if that's.
Yeah, I don't do spray paint. I'll do something else.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we're trying to find the most economical way
Right on.
to
Yeah, we'll stake it
get you
out.
to the next step here. Okay.
But thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Mason, is there anything else? You had something else on River?
Yeah, so I believe it's 291 High Road. It's the mirror side of the river as the town boat launch is. And there's a new owner there and he's looking to refresh what is existing for the gravel in the parking area there. He said that there's gonna be little to no removal of what is there for gravel. It's just gonna be placed on top. And then there was some additional site grading and the installation of patios that he wanted to do off the two dwellings. And he was looking to do those in an RDA, but with time restraints and that the launch area is going to be opening up early to the middle of May. I figured I'd bring this in front of the commission to figure out if there's anything that we could do to have, at least the refreshing of the parking lot, be done before.
Can you put up the plan?
It was 192.
91.
I think it's 191.
Yeah, it was put in the Dropbox. I put it in.
Got it right here. 1 second.
So it's 291 High Road, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't we
Uh,
have an
it-
active order on this site?
Actually, we closed one out. We issued a certificate of compliance in this area. I'm not sure if it's the same site, but
Yeah,
we
for
had a
two.
certificate of, we
This
issued a
was the one
certificate.
with the septic system.
Yeah, you know what, let me just go to my file here and see if 291.
Actually, no, this 291's coming up as was Fernald's Marine. Excuse me for the interruption, but so we actually did a residence behind 291, I believe.
So they can't do an RDA because they're right in the middle of the riverfront area here. And I'm not even sure that they can add gravel there. Because of the standards of redevelopment, you got to make some improvements over existing conditions. So what is this area used for? Boat storage or
Yeah, it's like parking and boat storage currently.
parking and boat storage? Okay. Yeah, this is a notice of intent. My opinion. So in ACEC, partially.
Yeah, could we had a site plan from 291? I'm just looking at my past files that's back in July of 24. I think it was for a septic system. Now that I think of it.
Yeah. My recollection was the septic. I didn't know it went with that building. I thought it went with another residence behind it.
Yeah, it was, and you know what, let me see if we issued a certificate of compliance probably. So, I mean, Mason, I think at a minimum, it's an RDA, and I think to Mary's point, if Mary's thinking it's an NOI, I think that's a 90-10 chance it's an NOI. Unless we're missing something on this. The gravel is refreshing an area that's already gravelled and used for, is it for transporting the boats, the canoes to the water? I'm not,
Yeah, so there's some dock storage that happens in this area, car parking, and then this turnaround to move boats around and back up at the ramp as well.
Yeah, they're trying to make it a more formal parking area. It's got to have some. This is the time to get the stormwater controls and everything and do it right.
yep, so you're thinking NOI, Mary?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, no, I think,
It's in flood zone, it's in ACEC, it's in riverfront area.
Mason, I think you have your answer.
Yep.
I mean, they certainly can try an RDA, but ultimately it's gonna become an NOI, so they should probably just stop.
And Mary, you said with redevelopment in the riverfront, they'd need to show some sort of improvement to the existing conditions.
Yeah, yep. So whether that's,
Plantings or,
plantings, pulling it back a little bit, adding stormwater control. I mean, stormwater controls are supposed to be required anyway, but it's redevelopment, so you do the best you can. But yeah, they have to demonstrate some kind of improvement here.
okay, well, I think you have your answer. Anything else you need on this one, Mason?
That's it for me.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
All right, any closing comments, Mary? Any comments you wanna
I'm
add
hungry.
before? Yep, so your only comment is a motion to adjourn?
Yeah. Yeah.
Does anyone have
motion to
a,
be hungry too.
yeah, you know what? I am starving too. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Mary, who wants to second it?
I will second.
Okay, Mick, all in favor? Mary, Woody, Frank,
Yes.
Aye,
Yes.
aye, aye.
Thank you,
Diane,
everyone.
Bob Connors, Mason,
Yes.
Santa Claus.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Mason.
everyone.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
Mason, can you make a note to send me the link for that last meeting that I missed?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.